It's a sad time for all NASCAR fans. The season has ended. There's nothing to look forward to next Sunday. We have to wait a whole 3 months for another race, and we get no practice or qualifying in between then. Actually, for Daytona we do. But, nonetheless, the season's over. It's time to give out some awards. Trophies were given out on Sunday. We're giving out some today on the show. Not that they mean anything or that they're actually getting a physical trophy, but hey, we're giving out some awards today. It's the award show. Woohoo! All right. Before we even get to any awards, I wanted to go through some of the best moments we had all 2020. It was an absolutely hectic, crazy, insane year. Anything that you expected to happen didn't. The exact opposite happened. So we had some crazy moments, some memorable things, some noteworthy moments throughout the entire season. And I'm going to go over my top 10. No honorable mentions. Screw all that. Straight top 10. Strictly the 10 best moments, in my opinion. We started the season off normal. Had the first 4 races. All hell broke loose. Came back a couple months later. And NASCAR pulled off some incredible stuff to get to where we are now. I mean, we finished the season. Who would have thought? Who would have thought any sport would have finished back in March? But man, what a crazy, crazy year. There was way more than 10 notable moments, but I narrowed it down to what I thought were the 10 most significant ones for sure. And to just start off with number 10, the 10th most memorable moment in 2020, Timmy Hill's iRacing win at Texas. You can't tell me that wasn't cool to see someone who gets little to no recognition on the actual track show some skill in some form of racing that probably helped develop his actual racing career for sure. And Timmy Hill's such a character. It was fun to watch him do it. And the whole iRacing Invitational thing could have been on this list as well, so that's why I wanted to include something along the lines of it, make it at least number 10 on there, because, I mean, the real racing is what you want. But the iRacing Invitational, the whole idea of it was a great thing. It helped keep NASCAR fans, like, what's the word? They got their fix. Is exactly what it was. And it was virtual. We had Clint Boyer in the booth talking while racing. It was just funny. It was a nice little break for when, I mean, COVID is still serious, but when it felt the scariest, I'd say, back when it was initially going, like the first breakout and all that. It was a nice break to see something along the lines of racing. You got to see some of your favorite characters and new characters too. I mean, there was all forms of every single motorsport was doing it, and you would see cameos of like Scott McLaughlin in IndyCar, and that's where he's going next year, and Dale Jr. racing IndyCar, Jimmy Johnson in the IndyCar, and all the stuff like that. It was really cool to see the merge of motorsports and just the whole entire motorsport community come together and enjoy something at once while everything else was going bad, it seemed. So Timmy Hill, great win for him. I think it helped. I mean, that you could argue that literally helped his career sponsor-wise and future opportunity-wise. Absolutely. I mean, as it may seem like it was nothing, and at the end of the day, it might have been, but he beat the best. Moving on to number 9. This is not the last non-racing thing, but it is the only thing I will say maybe not pertaining to strictly 2020. So I had the 2020 flexibility of the schedule was got to be one of the top 10 best parts of 2020 for sure. How we had midweek races and back-to-backs, tracks we've never been to. And then I think that led heavily into the decision-making for 2021 and how the schedule was going to pan out and how NASCAR was willing to go to new venues and no practice, seeing how that stuff worked with the no practice, no qualifying, and how, I mean, in my opinion, for no practice, no qualifying, I feel like that's exactly what led to seeing a guy like Harvick get 9 and Hamlin get 7. It's going to take the cars with the best equipment right off the truck and the best resources, best mechanics, and they're the ones that's going to thrive. And it doesn't take away opportunities from other drivers in the fields, but it gives them less of an opportunity to match what their competitors are doing. So, for instance, a driver like Martin Truex Jr., who normally would win more than one race in a season, you could argue was affected, especially with having a new crew chief, being so successful with Cole Pearn. He had a new crew chief this year. You could say that not having as many laps on the track with the new crew chief and learning what he can take from Martin and how they can adjust during the race could seriously affect the season. So I think you're going to see a lot more of that as long as there's no practice, no qualifying. You're going to see the most successful teams winning most of the races, and maybe even that's just two drivers of the most successful teams continuing to win. So, I mean, Chase Elliott could end up being one of those 9-10 wins in a season if there's no practice, no qualifying. I could for sure see it. And how, the road courses and short tracks were getting Auto Club. It's just shifting the entire narrative of how NASCAR has been building the schedule. And I think how this season went and how they just had to improvise basically led to some open minds. And I think it's going to be great for the future of NASCAR. So I had to add it in on this list. Number 8, Cole Custer's win at Kentucky. I rewatched that finish probably like 4 or 5 times this morning. And a 4-wide pass on the last lap. And he passed Blaney, Harvick. I'm pretty sure Kurt Busch or Kyle Busch was the other one. So that's a lot of talent that Cole Custer passed 4 wide on the outside and just held them all off. And he was the only rookie to win this year. There were 2 first-time winners. Him and Byron, I believe, were the only 2. But, man, what a crazy finish. And to have a rookie win, no one expected to go into Kentucky or really any race weekend. I mean, there was a time where Tyler Reddick was actually really heating it up, and Christopher Bell had his moments throughout this year too. But no one probably thought Cole Custer was going to win a race this year. And it's no disrespect to him. He's probably one of the more underrated drivers in the field. I feel like he was probably if the Rookie of the Year wasn't decided how it was or how it is currently, kind of as it matches the playoff system, I think he might have won it anyway. Like Reddick had more hype around it. Like he'd be fast in the beginning of the race, and he would probably have, it seemed like, more speed at times. But Cole Custer had the consistency better than any of them. He was like a 12th place car every single week. Rarely any issues, especially leading into the playoffs. He was like a 8th to 12th place car every single weekend, and that's better than I would assume they would run, even with the equipment that he has. Just as a rookie, you'd expect struggles. So him pulling off a win was huge. It kind of one-upped his competitors, specifically how great the rookie class was this year. You'd want to, and everyone was talking about the 2 guys beside him. So to say, hey, I'm here too, I want to race, is pretty big. And anytime you see a first-time winner, it seems as it's dwindling down now, even though we have some drivers coming up that can definitely get a win. Chase Briscoe, Austin Cindric. Who else doesn't have a win that could definitely get one? I mean, Bubba Wallace would be a great one. I think he could definitely get it done one day. There'll be a scenario where whether it's a super speedway, short track, whatever, I think Bubba will be in a legitimate scenario to win a race at some point. Who else don't got to win? John Hunter, you could see any of the rookies this year, Seabell, Tyler Reddick. I mean, there's going to be some winners. Suarez could win a race too if he gets a good, I mean, we'll see how his new team performs this year. But being one of 2 first-time winners, as it seems like the competition is dwindling down and it's really only the top guys winning races, was really huge, and it was cool to see, especially not on a super speedway, just on a random 1.5 miles. It's something you don't really expect going into a race like that. Really enjoyed it. For number 7, I could have put both Talladega finishes here because they were both equally as crazy, but I'm going to stick to the fall one because of the controversy between Denny Hamlin and just going below the yellow line, passing and all that. That was just a storyline that I felt like captivated a lot of people, and it was something that you have every few years at a super speedway where there's some controversy and it's got to be talked about. So I had to add it on the list because that infuriated me for sure. It was one of the more memorable times throughout this year. And I was thinking about this also earlier this morning. I don't know why, if it's only me, if it's for whatever reason, previous seasons, like end of the season playoff time, don't really stick well in my memory as much as the beginning of the year and the middle of the season maybe. I mean, there are definitely moments like the championship races will leave an impression for sure. But I mean, like the first round, the first two races, like when New Hampshire would have a playoff race and stuff like that, like those years don't really leave a lasting impression. So normally it's the beginning of the year and the end of the year, but there was a lot of moments towards the end of 2020 that were captivating and crazy, and I felt like a lot of these things that I'm going to talk about dealt with latter half of the seasons. And I don't know if that's a first for me, or maybe it's just I was so in tune with the season this year and everything was so big and crazy and whatever that I really just listened more, or maybe I paid attention more, and it felt like it made more of an impression, whatever it is. But man, the Talladega finish, controversial as all hell. Denny Hamlin, I mean, he did what he did, can't take it away now. But Matty D got snaked from another one. Still could have stayed on the track and maybe made a pass for the win. Still didn't have to go 4 car lengths below the yellow line and pull it off and not get called for whatever reason. That's like getting away with murder in NASCAR, what Denny Hamlin did. It's like Stephen Avery shit, going that low below the yellow line and not even getting a like not even mentioned. Like they didn't even say anything. Not even yeah, we recognize what Denny did and how that is against our rules, but no, didn't hear any of that. And I didn't hear any of that. Even if it was said, I wasn't really listening to him. I was pissed off enough. But regardless if it made me upset or not, it was memorable. It was great. Wasn't upset that Denny Hamlin necessarily won the race. Just the fashion that it had happened was unfortunate and seemed semi-cheap. But it's what you get. You get what you get. Don't get upset. We sign up for Talladega crapshoots. It's what we get. So I won't be. We'll move on now. Number 6, Kyle Busch's winless streak was broken at Texas, and that was a storyline all season. I felt like every race you'd see, last time he won a race, 2019 Homestead for the championship. Quote, every single time you saw they mentioned his winless streak, that is exactly what it said. And it was when I got me rooting for Kyle Busch, first time ever. Back in my younger years, I hated that motherfucker. Man, winning every single Xfinity nationwide back then, like it ruined it. And I liked to watch every single race, all the trucks, Xfinity. Like I wanted to stay in tune. And he would win every single one of them, and it made you root for the regulars so much harder. Like Michael Annett in the 43 car, if you remember that. I was a big fan of him back in that day. Around that time, Eric Almirola might have drove the 88 for Junior Motorsports. I think Danica was still in the series. Who else raced back in that day? Kyle Larson in the 32, Alex Bowman in the 99. What year was that? 2013-ish? Around that Xfinity time. That's when Kyle Busch, Kevin Harvick, they'd go out and win all those races. Brad Keselowski, Logano would even still. And that's when Blaney was coming up and all them. But, man, Kyle Busch's winless streak was a story all season, and it wasn't all under his fault because the luck was just absolutely horrendous. I don't know if it was Talladega or it must have been because there was a lot of crashes, but it felt like Kyle Busch was in every single accident. And there was a couple string of races, like he won at Texas, but there were both the Kansas races he was really strong. And there was a couple races heading into the playoffs where he was getting some top 10s and top 5s, and it felt like he was staying out of trouble. But, I mean, when it mattered, just absolutely obliterated. He was the first champion of the previous season to get eliminated in the round of 12. Everyone else had made it to the at least round 8. Defending champion is what I was trying to say. The first defending champion to not make it to the round 8 at least. But I think Kyle Busch just wanted to be done with this season. Fresh start new next year. And I think he'll be back and better than ever. Denny's had 2 extremely strong years, so I think Kyle won the championship still. Even Denny had a strong year in 2019. But I think Kyle's gonna want to get back on the path. They got to prepare for Christopher Bell. And Martin's still there. I don't know how much time Martin's got left, and if Martin doesn't have... I mean, you look at the season Martin didn't make the Final Four, and I think that's the goal for that squad every single season. That set the precedent just for the driver and the team. Didn't make the Final Four, only won 1 race. Had a lot of podium finishes. If that was a stat really counted in NASCAR, he probably would have had arguably the most. Other than someone like Harvick and Hamlin with their wins. He probably would have been top 3 in that, so... If I feel like Martin has to win some more, I mean, depending on how long the contract is and the consistency, if he wins 2 races in the regular season and makes the Final Four next year, I think that helps his case. But having 1 win at Martinsville, wicked early in the year, and just, I mean, you need a playoff win if you wanna contend for championships. So he's got to show some more of that in 2021. Got to have some of that if he wants to not get kicked out, because I don't like Toyota, the way they run things, and Joe Gibbs Racing, and how things move so fast there. And Martin is aging, and they got some young up-and-comers. If someone like, I mean, looking at who they got and how they could move through series, unless they go out and grab somebody, a free agent or whoever, you could argue Martin has at least 3 more, because let's say Eckes has a good truck year next year, Xfinity does well, and then maybe another Xfinity year if they want Eckes, or maybe Brandon Jones is in the equation. I'm not really sure about that. He might seem like a perennial Xfinity driver for a little bit, until, I mean, he had a really good year, but I think he needs at least 1 more really good year, especially with, again, how Toyota runs things and just the stacked set that they already got and the minimum seats. Brandon Jones has some work to do. I mean, Ty Gibbs they want to get him in an Xfinity car next year, I'm pretty sure. So, and then Riley Herbst is out, so that he's not in the equation. So Ty Gibbs is already getting some Xfinity time, so we'll see what he does. I'm not sure how old Ty Gibbs is. I assume that he'll be running smaller tracks and such, and things of that nature. Maybe not the road courses, because they said they want to make it a super team with like Denny and Kyle and shit. So I'm sure they'll be wanting to run. Oh, that's going to be crazy. That's going to suck. So, you know what? For future DraftKings lineup next year, look at things like that. If there's no practice at Watkins Glen and Kyle Busch runs Watkins Glen, pick Kyle Busch and things like that. You'll win money in DraftKings, I promise you, one day. But regardless of that, we're going to move on to number 5. Ryan Newman's crash in the Daytona 500 finish was one of the most polarizing things, and it almost seems forgotten at this time with how much time's passed and how much things have gone on. But I mean, that was intense. That was world stopping. The earth stopped when you saw that car just leaking fuel on the ground, and you're like, holy shit. And then it took hours to know that this guy was just okay. It was crazy. It was intense. And like, I vividly remember watching the finish, and those are the moments that you remember forever. And I had to put it at number 5 because just the year was crazy and there was so many things, but that was a very impressionable moment. I don't know if it's just me. You let me know if that happened to you too, but that finish I'll remember that forever for sure. Just how close it was and just the violence of it. It was one of the most crazy crashes, and literally, it helped. It's going to advance safety measures with how they're building the insides of the cars, and they're pretty sure they're naming it the Newman bar that they're adding to the car. So, I mean, as crazy and nearly tragic as it was, it is going to innovate the sport and help at the end of the day. And it was probably, there were a lot of there aren't many newsworthy things that happen within NASCAR that break out of the NASCAR audience, but that was 1,000% one of them. That everyone saw on the news, Ryan Newman's crash and like him walking out with his daughters a couple of days later. It was just a great moment. Everything about it was like a freaking movie, and like it set the tone for the year. And boy, if we knew what was going to happen, that we would have been like, oh shit, so this is how things work now. Oh man, the first couple weeks of February, we get hit with Ryan Newman getting smashed in the face with a race car, and man, all hell breaks loose after. We're moving on to number 4. Kevin Harvick getting eliminated in the playoffs this year was it was equally as sad and epic. It was better than a finish for the win, watching him hit Kyle Busch at the end. It was better than a side-by-side battle for the win. It felt like it. I felt like that was it was for the entire season right there, that one pass. As fun and entertaining as it was, that's exactly what NASCAR is looking for. If you look at the other side of it, it shows flaws within the playoff system and how things can get better. And I think it's a big moment for the conversation of what can change and how can we make this better. So good and bad. It helps NASCAR move forward. As a person who wants the playoffs to change and are equally as entertained as what we got going on, I think it was epic. Seeing him just literally go for it all. And I didn't, I mean, not that Harvick's a dirty driver. Definitely in the past he had his fiery moments, but I mean, I didn't expect him to just literally like take out Kyle Busch to try to get that point. And imagine if he did, he passes him. And I mean, I don't think Kyle would really be upset. It wouldn't be a real problem. I don't think it would be. I mean, he would be like, what the hell? But again, look at what NASCAR forces the drivers to do. So you could argue Kyle would have been doing the same thing. I don't think I would have pictured anybody doing exactly what Kevin Harvick did. Unless it was like Stenhouse or somebody crazy that would just absolutely do. And Newman has done that before to get into the championship four. Poor Kyle Larson got the brunt of that one back in the day, kicking Jeff Gordon out in 2014. That was the first year they did it, and the first year they did it, it gets exploited. So if that wasn't a red flag, 6, 7 years later, there's no more red flags. They're content with what they got. But poor Harvick. It's a shame that he wasn't competitive at Phoenix, because imagine if he won that and then you think back to if he had that point. You're like, well, that's your champion if Kevin Harvick gets a point at Martinsville. So I'm kind of glad that didn't happen for that conversation, because that one would have been difficult, because it's what happened to Austin Hill in the trucks last year, I believe. Very similar scenario. We had a bad race, and I mean, it could have happened this year if he had won. He was in the good for a while at Martinsville, had a tough day. But yeah, the playoffs, man, they'll bite your ass one year. But I think Harvick's going to get another one before he calls it a career. He has just been, since moving to Stewart-Haas Racing, been the best NASCAR driver, bar none. The only other person you could argue is Kyle Busch. But I mean, Harvick, you could say, I would think from 2014 to now, I could absolutely be so wrong, but I would bet that Harvick has more wins, and I'm going to fact check myself than Kyle Busch. I'm going to fact check myself after I record this, or maybe even if I get a moment between doing things, I'll look it up. But Harvick has had multiple 8+ win seasons since 2014, multiple 28 top 10 seasons. Like, think about less than 7-8 races in a year. Pick 7-8 races in a year, and you're not going to finish in the top 10. And like Harvick's worst finish this year, I don't think he finished Martinsville was a tough day. I got to figure out where he finished. I mean, he did wreck at the end, so that fucked with his finishing at the end. But I want to say he was battling for like 13th or whatever, and around that range. First worst finish has been 26th all year. That's crazy. 26th is your worst finish. Some drivers fight to finish 26th, and that's your worst finish all year. Impressive season for Harvick. He's got some awards coming up for him later, for sure. The number 3 moment, I definitely could. This would have been number 1 if this just wasn't directly related to NASCAR. But the whole NASCAR fighting racism part of the season, when they banned the Confederate flag, and the incident at Talladega, where they thought there was a noose in the garage, and Bubba Wallace pushed his car to the front of the field. It was a huge moment. It brought people together, especially at the time that it happened after the George Floyd and all the protests were happening. Everything was going crazy, and NASCAR showed real support, and especially for a sport that seemed to have a stigma of racism within it, and just a stereotype, you'll call it. And I mean, look at how some people react with the people outside the track with the Confederate flag still going, like pissed off or whatever. So, I mean, those people can stay out of NASCAR, not really wanted, not really needed. To have people come together and actually try to create a safer community is humongous, especially in a community that can seem toxic and is actually extremely vocal. And maybe it's because I'm not really a part of other ones, I guess you could say, like of really any other topic. Like I don't really go on like NFL Twitter or anything else I'm really interested in. And so to be a part of NASCAR, the community, and see how it is and how it reacts to things, it can be nasty sometimes. And you'd see there have been instances within social media of people getting like bullied off of it, and it's sad. And to have people come together and try to become a more accepting place for all fans and anybody alike is humongous. And I had to put a top 3. If this was just about life and anything, it would be number 1 for sure. But throughout the season, there were just a couple more things that I thought surpass the importance, just for NASCAR purposes, of course. But to be together and to have those moments and to see Bubba, that was just a huge story. And he was leading in that race, I believe, or he had moments, I want to say. He led a couple laps, both Talladega races, and that was the first one, I want to say. So it was just a great moment. And to have like recognition from new ownership about things that may have been a problem in the past, and how Bubba said he thought it was a problem, that track still had that. And they reacted and they listened, and that's all you could ask for, and it was huge. For the number 2 moment, the entire Cup season was exactly the return to Darlington. Gotta love it. NASCAR came back. It was so exciting. We lost everything so fast. All the sports gone. I remember the tweet, reading it. The NBA has postponed the season. A Woj bomb like no other stopped everything. That's what it felt like to me. Right when I saw that tweet, everything went downhill. I remember going to my friend's house like, bro, what the fuck is going to happen? What is going to happen? And we didn't know shit. Still kind of don't, I'll say. And what month is it? November? No, it's November 10th. That was like a March something, like mid-March. And it's November 10th, and I feel like we have the same exact amount of answers that we did back then. Regardless, NASCAR coming back was epic. It was so fun. It felt so good. We got midweek races. It was cool. Harvick showed that he was about to kick some ass right away. And then we had the next race a couple days later. Kyle Busch wrecked Chase. I don't know, and it was just a wild start of events. And then the schedule was dropping like periodically. Oh, it was just so cool. It felt so nice to have so much racing at once, from having nothing to everything right there. It was right in your face. It was, I want to say UFC was the first sport to like really come back, but NASCAR was the first one in America, I believe, to start events again, and they did it perfectly with no fans. I feel like it's relatively easy with, I mean, you're not like going face to face with your opponents. You're kind of you're literally in your own car. You're never going to get within 6 feet of somebody like in your car, but I mean, the cars are going to get pretty damn close. But the drivers are safe, you could argue, within their cars. So I felt like it was easier for NASCAR to kind of transition back from the position they were put in from COVID. But, I mean, we got so much racing. There was new tracks included, going back to the number 9 with the flexibility of the schedule. We had the Daytona Road Course in there. We had like 3 races at Darlington this season. We had back-to-backs at, where do we go? Pocono, Michigan, Dover, Charlotte and Darlington were both back-to-back. We had the Bristol All-Star race. Just everything that NASCAR was doing this year, it felt like a news drop every other couple days about something new that was going to happen like a month from now. And it was like, ooh, it was always unknown until you knew it. And that, as stupid as that sounds, they would drop things. And like, for instance, imagine starting a season, we start it back up, you get like 5 races, and then after the 4th race, you're like, oh, where are we going next? Like, that is some cool shit. And it's nice to have everything laid out at the beginning. You want to know for planning purposes. Of course, there's really no plans that people could go to for most of these races. I was fortunate to go to one this year, though. But COVID sucked. NASCAR said, fuck that, we're coming back, and it went great. And look where we are now. Finished the season off and planning for 2021. And if there was no COVID, we'd be getting next gen next year. Oh my God! Imagine, and imagine if like Joey Logano, who's champion? Who's champion if there's no COVID? Jimmy finished, got stage points all 8 of those stages, I want to say, and then came back and fucked it up. But it's all right. We digress. Love the guy. Jimmy Johnson finished 5th in his last race. I would have never expected it. All you can ask for. It was fun to watch. It was gratifying. It felt good. It felt like it was okay to end, and it was fun to watch. And like, that race will mean a lot to me, like as a Jimmy Johnson fan for sure. I'll love to go back and rewatch that, because I mean, as little camera time as you get in a championship race, if you're not a championship contender, I mean, finish 5th, the best of the guys who weren't going for the championship. And speaking of that championship, the number 1 moment of 2020 was Chase Elliott winning that championship, baby. That was crazy. And Jimmy's last race, just speaking on it. My God, I was like in disbelief. I didn't even initially celebrate, I was just like, I cannot believe that the Chase Elliott, like this as a NASCAR fan, this is a first for me. This is the first time that I have watched this person's career develop and they have became Cup champion. Every single time it's been Johnson, Harvick, Kabush, guys that kind of started their careers before I could truly pay attention. I remember watching Chase Elliott's first Xfinity wins, and now look at him winning a championship. Like, this is the future. This is huge in NASCAR. It's rare that, like, Brad Keselowski won in his third full-time season. It's rare that, like, young drivers win championships. It's an old man sport. He's setting a precedent early. Like, legends do that shit. I mean, Bill Rexford, I think, should, like, if there was, no offense to Bill, if anyone related or knows who Bill Rexford was that listens to this, I'm sorry. The most irrelevant NASCAR champion of all time. The man has one career win. One career win and you're a champion. I mean, good for you. If it won him the championship, all hats off to you. If you're a NASCAR champion, you should have something in the Hall of Fame notifying yourself to be a champion, for sure. But Jeff Gordon is the only notable young champion, like 24. Kurt Busch was 26. Chase is right in between them two right now. So Chase is the third youngest champion ever. Jeff Gordon is the only one relevant younger than him. You tell me, bro. You tell me. Kurt Busch right above him. You tell me what's going to happen. I mean, Kurt only has one, but Kurt's been a Hall of Famer for damn near half his career by now. So Chase is setting himself up. That was his 10th or 11th career win. I mean, I want to say Martinsville was 10, so I'll say that one was 11. But what a year for Chase Elliott. I mean, maybe not the strongest car all season. Definitely not with Harvick and Hamlin and even Keselowski, you could argue. But I can't believe Chase Elliott won that championship. Just it was intense. Just as a Hendrick fan and Jimmy's last start, Jimmy got to celebrate. It was all you could ask for. But those are my top 10 moments. And now after we've done the top 10 moments, I'm gonna go through my awards and some shout outs to the people that are leaving the sport at the season's end. For the 2020 NASCAR MVP, no other than Kevin Harvick. You cannot argue. The only other driver I would accept is Denny Hamlin. No offense to Chase Elliott, had the final two races, won him the championship. But Kevin Harvick was by far the strongest car all year. These are regular season awards. No, they're not. That's a lie. These are cumulative season awards for sure. But Kevin Harvick was the MVP, no doubt. Most improved driver of this season. This was a tougher one, because there was a couple ones you could have had. You could have even put Chase in this scenario, considering he won the championship. But I kind of wanted to go someone who has been improving, and I feel like a lot of fans would agree with this decision with Matt DiBenedetto as the most improved, because the handful, like Las Vegas and Talladega, you could argue got him re-signed. Those two races alone got him a contract for next year. And another year to survive and try to gain another opportunity. And I think that Matty D is good enough to stay in this sport for a long time. It's just a matter of him maintaining the sponsors and a team willing to just sign him and keep him. Because it's basically a fourth Penske car is what he's driving. So he's going to have fourth Penske car speed. But at the same time, the fourth car for each team has a couple winning opportunities each season. And Matty D has had that. So if he gets to just one more level up, he could get that win, and he could be a consistent playoff driver every single season. For sure. In my eyes, I hope he stays in the sport, and I just hope he continues to improve, because I'll put him on this list next year if he damn near does it. Crew Chief of the Year. This one I wanted to try to not pick the obvious, but at the same time, the obvious was the best. So Rodney Childers was absolutely the crew chief of the year. You don't get 9 wins and just the dominance they had and the consistency they had by not being the best in the business and the best on the box. The best on the box, I like that. Best on the box, Rodney Childers. That's the name of the award next year. Actually, for the next show, I'm going to do this for the trucks and the Xfinity too. Xfinity Awards, Truck Awards. But best on the box is going to be the name of the award from now on. So remember that. Best in the box, Rodney Childers. The biggest bust of 2020 was the low horsepower, high downforce package. That shit sucked. That shit was awful. And it leads into one of the another awards too. And it's sad that NASCAR likes it because no one else does except them. And I hope that it blows up in their ass and everyone watches a race next year and says, we're done. Even like respectable reporters are saying, I think this is the last straw. When people who cover your sport for a living and have a vocal influence on the fans and vice versa, the fans may influence how they feel and they notice how the fans feel, and maybe you're a little blind to that because you're working on business deals and shit. Listen to them. It sucks. It is not good. I want to hear the drivers get off the gas on a 1.5 miles. That doesn't seem natural to just go wide open. Should be strictly super speedways, and that is all. No other track should you be holding the gas down fully the entire lap, other than Talladega and Daytona, and you can't change my mind on that. So the biggest bus, low horsepower, high downforce package, we need to get rid of that, stick to some 750, throw some HP in that B, and let them run. Let them run. Let them try to get some lap times. Let them try to get some runs by getting on the gas a little earlier than somebody else. My God, NASCAR. Take some notes from the past, will ya? Shit. The hardest hit, if it was any other year, maybe there'd be a couple choices. But how can you say Ryan Newman didn't take the hardest hit? The only other one I could say, off the top of my head, Ryan Preece had a crazy one at Kansas. And there were definitely some more scattered throughout, but Ryan Newman, bar none, had the worst crash all season, so he had to have the hardest hit. No, end of discussion. The finish of the year was the Martinsville playoff race. And it's just between Harvick and Kyle Busch. That one moment was just so crazy and entertaining and big and meant everything, and it was just right there. And right when Chase crossed the finish line, they cut to him, and you're like, oh my God, he's under him. Can he do it? Can he do it? And you were rooting for it, and you were like, oh, is he going to be able to? And then he just wrecks him, and it was just a whole big thing. It was a great time. Defensive Driver of the Year. The final award I will give out. Defensive Driver of the Year goes to Joey Logano. And that's just off the Kansas race, man. Blocked his way to a frickin' championship berth. All he had to do. I mean, that's some defense right there. Some absolute defense. And you could even go with someone who won the super speedway races, but there wasn't a lot of, there was a lot of blocking during the race, but a block at the end kind of got you turned most of the time. It felt like. So Defensive Driver of the Year, Joey Logano, just based off that Kansas race, man, blocked his way to a championship berth and a win, first one since before COVID. So got to give a shout out to a guy who got credit where it's due. Defensive Driver, Joey Logano. And as a final shout out to the people leaving the sport, I want to shout out Jimmy Johnson for being the absolute GOAT and just having a great career. It's been fun to watch. And honestly, I was thinking I'm really excited to dive into other forms of motorsports that he's going to be racing in, like watching more IMSA if Jimmy does more than the Daytona, more than the 24 hours and stuff like that. All the IndyCar races I'm going to be tuning in. And I've watched full IndyCar seasons in the past, and it's been a great time. I love the sport, but I just don't really go out of my way to watch it all that often. But I definitely will now that Jimmy's in it. I'll be super interested. It's going to be fun. I don't think Clint Bowyer and Matt Kenseth got nearly enough respect as they should have on Sunday with how it was. Matt Kenseth isn't confirmed its last race, but you can assume, can't you? And Bowyer, we'll hear from him a lot more. I think he's going to be a part of the broadcast team for a long time, and I'm super excited. He is from the jump, he is going to be the favorite broadcaster on that team. And rewatching some Fox highlights this morning, Jeff Gordon and Mike Joy were so freaking good. Jeff Gordon is a honestly great announcer. He is a fan, and it's exciting, and he gets vocal at right times, and it's not like when, who was it? Who won the championship for Xfinity? Austin Cindric. Rick Allen said like 40 words in 5 minutes. No, 40 words on the third and fourth corner. That's what he said. It was unnecessary. Like, I want to just watch the race, let it sink in. It's a big moment, man. You don't gotta be speaking through it. Don't taint them. Don't taint what everyone is going to be seeing with your words. It's bigger than the words coming out of your mouth. And I think Clint will be great at that. I think he'll be comedic relief at moments. Him and Jeff, they're like basic rivalry in racing is so hilarious to me. I know Jeff Hammond's team and DW's team. No, was Jeff Hammond Darrell Waltrip's crew chief? I believe so. Regardless, got into a fight at that 1989 All-Star race. I'm not sure if they were fighting, their teams are fighting each other, or they were on the same team. Regardless, Jeff Hammond was a part of it, and so wasn't DW. But Jeff Gordon and Clint Bowyer's little rivalry is fun. And it's as serious as it seemed back in the day. I think they're grown men about it, and it's fun that they joke back and forth about it, and I think they can take it, dish it. And they're going to be a fun duo. Shout out Chad Knaus, his last race. He's going to be, I think he being in the role that he's going to be in the future is going to absolutely make Hendrick continue to be elite. He is someone that you got to keep within the organization, and him making bigger decisions, whether it's people who get hired or people that are going to be driving the cars. I'm super excited. And I think he's just was one of the smartest brains in the sport, and to keep him within your organization, that's just an extra resource that no one else has. And we're losing some teams too. And the tweets, the Levine family tweet in the Go Fast saying we're going part-time, like, I wonder if their like Twitter accounts are just gonna like die. Like, I hope they like stick around, man. And I bet Bob Levine will be booling on Twitter. He's always on there, but man, it's sad to see some of these teams go. Levine family, Germain Racing, and Go Fast going part-time. So I mean, who knows how long they got? But maybe they get a revival. But shout out to those teams, and we're gaining new ones. But I can't promise the competitiveness. Like those three. We're like mid-pack teams, and we're gaining 1-2 teams, and like one you could assume is mid-pack with the 99 and Bubba Wallace's Michael Jordan team. We'll see how that goes, but it's a sad day. NASCAR's over, but we got a whole off season to look forward to. Got 2 more shows this week I'm going to do for the Xfinity and Truck Awards, like I said. Got to recognize all the seasons. Everything was great this year. Got to love all the NASCAR. We're going to have some fun shows in the off season too. Try to get some lists going, maybe make some real YouTube videos, trying to get the ideas flowing. 2021 is going to be big. Discuss some of the ideas I got going on for that. Fantasy we'll get into later on in the year too. It's going to be a great off season. I hope you enjoyed the award show. We got 2 more coming, so stay tuned. Ben the NASCAR guy out.